Dhruv, have you started the broadcast?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll start in like 30 seconds.
So, shall we start or shall we wait for another 2 minutes? 18 participants right now.
Yeah, I think we're good to start.
Just
Okay,
give me a
everyone's here. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the IBC Continuous Education Program. So glad you could join us. So we're mostly all familiar faces here. So as usual, we have our star host Deepak with us. We have Selva sir. We are very familiar with Selva sir, and we have you remember Praveen sir from yesterday. So we have Praveen sir with us here today. So yes, hello sir. I hope I'm audible. I hope all of y'all can hear us.
Hey Dhruv, thank you. So, guys, we will begin. We are almost ready to start. Just before that, just make sure that if you are participating in the entire continuous program, you register on the Google form that we have shared. If you have already participated in the IBC HackFest, make sure you uh, click yes to that option in the form. Do make sure you share with your friends the form so they can also participate in the same. I know there were dozens of queries about students not being able to come participate in the Hackfest. Now is the right time to, I know a lot of you reached out to me and other team members of IBC Media to allow their friends to come in for the Hackfest. I think now is the perfect time to, share the link and share the information where they can come and start learning. And yeah, that's a side note that everybody should remember, that share the information so that everybody can get the most out of this continuous education program that has been devised, keeping in mind what the students today need to build in the Web3 and blockchain ecosystem. Yeah, so we have Mr. Selvaraju. All of you know him quite well, and I'm super glad that he's here with us for another insightful session. You'll be seeing his face quite a lot in the coming days. And the best thing about Selva sir is that he makes sure that none of you, get distracted on the way while his teachings get into the most difficult portions of blockchain. So, Selva sir, I think the stage is yours. First of all, I'm really glad that you are here with us, and I hope students get to, get the maximum knowledge from you, and we'll end up with a lot of Q&As in the end. Sir, please begin. Let's take the conversation ahead. On to you.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you, Dhruv. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You remember me? Hey, guys. Right. Okay. So today's orientation program's second session is about the blockchain developer track. Basically, you're going to see what it takes to become a Web3 developer or DApp developer, however you want to put it, blockchain developer, DApp developer, or Web3 developer. Okay. So I do have a small PowerPoint presentation. So essentially, it will be more of a discussion, and I'll be giving you lots and lots of links uh, for you to utilize. And again, remember, okay, um, DAPP3 development requires a certain mindset. Okay. Now, of course, so far what we are doing is we are not still into pure, what to say, DApp development or Web3 development. It's actually the applications that you develop are sort of a combination of Web2 and Web3. Okay. So it's more of a hybrid solution that we are actually trying to develop in here. Okay. Right. Now, one of the most important things, I want you to feel free to raise hand and please ask questions. Okay. The more questions you ask, the better will be your learning experience. Okay. Not only for you, but also for others who might be hesitating to, ask questions. Okay. Right. So I see there are 3 questions. Let me just check this out. Yeah. Yeah, Sairam, good evening. And okay, Vijay Lakshmi says good evening. That's fine. Okay. So don't put this good evening messages inside of the Q&A. Let's keep it purely for Q&A. Okay. Right. Okay.
Sir, in the student defense of the students,
Yeah.
that was that was in response to your greetings. So they were like, "Yes, good evening. Sir. We remember your face and stuff
Okay,
like
fine,
that."
fine, fine. Yeah, I know. Okay, so first off,
Just a sec.
before I start, let me tell you guys, I love you all. You've been fantastic audience in our, on the ground sessions as well. So I expect the same kind of enthusiasm and commitment. And if at all you feel bogged down, you always know how to reach me out. Okay, and if things are not working, see, whenever you learn something new, it is going to happen. Okay. uh, Nobody has learned to ride a bicycle without scratches on the knees and the elbows, right? So it's all part of learning. Okay, don't get bogged down. At times you might feel that the technology is too daunting for you, but again, remember, it's just a matter of practice. Okay, so don't worry about that. Now, please do interrupt me as often as you can. Okay, that will actually lead to a better understanding of stuff that you're not able to understand right now. And also, as I mentioned, when you ask a question, some of people who are hesitant to ask questions, they will also get benefited out of it. So again, sharing of information. Okay, right. So first things first. Okay, can anyone tell me, when you say Web3 developer, what does it mean? Anybody?
Guys, feel free to enter your responses in the chat box, and I will relay the
Yeah.
information to Selva, sir.
So, let me- so when you say Web3 developer, what is it that you're looking for? What should be the roadmap? Okay, so roadmap is what we are going to discuss. But from your understanding, what exactly is it when you say a Web3 developer? Again, remember, we're not going to judge you. I'm not going to judge you based on your answers. Okay, don't worry about that. I'm here to basically, cut out all the myth, okay, and misunderstandings you might probably have as part of, your learning journey. Okay, so let me see. Building decentralized applications. Okay, one who develops decentralized apps. Yes, with Web3 developer, first thing is adoption of technology, learning new things at every point of time. So Puneet, actually, this is basically generally applicable for every new technology that comes up. Okay, right. Um, okay. What else? Ashok Wanga has said one who develops decentralized. Yeah, that's true. That is true. So ultimately, what we are trying to do is try to build a decentralized application, right? So when you say a decentralized application, what does it actually mean? That's what you really need to understand. Okay. Now, traditionally, what happens is, so I'm going to use. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so let me just. Okay, so let me share my screen. It is started. Are you all able to see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay, that's good. Okay, fine. So first off, you need to understand, when you say decentralized application, which actually mean that obviously there has to be something called as centralized applications, right? So almost all the traditional web applications that you see today are all, centralized application. What does it actually mean? So essentially, let me just give you a brief idea as to what it means. So let's say Okay, so I have a server in there. Okay, let's say this is a web server, some sort of a web server, or maybe I'll just keep simpler. Let's see. Cloud server private. Oh, I didn't know that draw.io had so many options. Okay. So let's put it as web server. Okay, so this is my web server. Okay. And I have a browser here, right? So now what really goes on is that essentially you send a request, okay, and you get a response back, right? So it's basically a request and response, okay? So our request and this is our response. Now, when you say, so this is a traditional web application, right? So, a traditional web application. Okay, so now basically what happens in a traditional web application is that this is your browser, this is your web server. So um, now what is happening? We send a request for a certain page, and then the server responds back with a response, pumping out all the HTML so that you can actually, render that in the browser, and you interact with the page, and so on and so forth. Right? So it's a very simplified view of a traditional web application, right? So this is a centralized application because your application is on one single server. Okay, there's a whole point behind this. So it's a traditional web application. So we can say that this is actually centralized. A centralized web application. Okay. So there's a centralized web application. So now what happens is, of course, apart from that, uh, you may also have a database. You might have a database server to which this server actually talks to. Okay, so you might have a database server as well, right? So this is your database server, and the web server basically talks to this in order to get the data, right? So it looks something like this. So it's talking to the database server to fetch the data, and the database server gives it. Yeah. So basically, so when you're, let's say, for instance, you are logging in and your user credentials need to be verified. So what will happen is that essentially you'll be sending your credentials to the web application which is running on the server. It will send out the data to the database and get the validation done. And once the validations are done, the response will come back in the form of either the login is valid or not. Right? This is a centralized web application. Okay, centralized application to be more precise. Okay, so now, so traditionally this is what we have been doing, right? Now, what is happening as on today is that when you say decentralized application, what does it mean? So essentially, what it means is something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy all of this, okay, and just place it. So I'll just call this as decentralized. Okay, and this would be a DAP. So when you say distributed application, what actually happens is that essentially, now as I mentioned, we generally use a hybrid, model of working. So what you're having is that your application is trying to process some data, okay, and here what we do is in addition to this, we also have a blockchain. So if you're building a full-fledged app, okay, if you're building a full-fledged app, then what will happen is that in addition to this web server, which will actually give you the UI, okay, now the data would be stored, okay, in the blockchain. However, there's one more thing that you have to understand. So this is your blockchain, which actually contains not just the data, okay, but also your smart contracts. So data plus smart contracts. Okay. So this is our blockchain. This is where the blockchain sits. So it's basically bringing in the smart contracts and also data, right? Now, your distributed application, when you say distributed application, what is happening? So when you say smart contract, what happens? It's actually a piece of code, right? But this piece of code, when deployed on a blockchain, what happens? This becomes a truly distributed, piece of code, which is distributed across the entire network. Okay, and then it will be executed from the blockchain network itself, right? So not just your data is getting distributed, your smart contracts are also in a distributed fashion. And smart contracts are at the core of any distributed application. So that's why we call these as decentralized applications. Okay. So what happens if you're looking at a roadmap for becoming a DApp developer? So what do you need to do? First of all, you have to understand how to make use of the blockchain, okay, and how to write smart contracts, how the data storage happens, and the like. Okay. Now, apart from this, so one of the important things you have to understand about blockchain uh, is that whenever we talk of blockchain, you have to understand that blockchain, when it comes to the storage, the data storage of data, that is very very limited. So essentially, we use it as a mechanism for storing the transactions that are happening. Okay, and some amount of data. That's it. But if you have large amount of data, then what do you do? So in that case, what happens is then we use a different mechanism altogether. We use, so of course we can always use databases, but the whole point is that we want to avoid the databases, but it may not be possible all the time. So in addition to this, Okay. We also use what is called as the IPFS, right? So we can use IPFS on top of this. So in order to push some data, like say for instance, if you are trying to build, let's say, uh, a social media application, okay? So when you upload a video or you upload an image, this kind of data is not suitable for storage on the blockchain because blockchain data storage is very expensive. Okay, it is purely meant for storing transactions. So you have to limit yourself to transactions and not put all the status messages or images or video files or anything of that sort. So what do? You could definitely use a database, but now since we are entering into the realm of distributed applications, what we do is we use IPFS to do that. Okay, so I don't know if I can paste IPFS in here. So let me just check this out. Okay, so I have the IPFS. Let me copy this image. Oh, it doesn't work. Okay, right. So you could use an IPFS file storage. Okay, so let's see.
Silva sir, before you go deeper, I would want to make a comment here.
Sure. Good.
Yeah. So I think one thing that you all appreciate what Silva is saying here, that when you are moving from centralization to decentralization, what really happens? You are not depending upon one server. Like in the upper diagram, if your central server shuts down, your application is gone. You cannot access it anymore, right? I mean, that's the biggest limitation there.
True.
And when we say decentralized application, then what we are saying basically is that the program that runs the business logic, which is embedded into the smart contract form, that program gets executed on several nodes, or I mean, Silva will talk about that. That will be run simultaneously on several nodes, and even if one node which is hosting that smart contract goes down, it is just one of thousands, one of many. That is
Exactly.
the true decentralization that Silva is talking about.
Yes.
One more point that I would want to point out here, that to what extent we are decentralizing. Very, very interesting point that you all should keep in mind. That if you look at many of the decentralized application today which are being built, uh, you know, uh, the business logic may have been put in a smart contract, but then sometimes the front end code is being put in a cloud server, for example.
Right.
That also is not true decentralization, because if that cloud goes down, you lose the ability to hit your blockchain or smart contract. Now, that does not mean that your application goes away. Your application is still there, but then you still create a dependency there. Now, second point is that, like we talked about IPFS, interplanetary file system, that Silva talked about. This is another way of decentralized way of storing the data, and maybe we could talk, Silva will talk more about that. But the idea here is that instead of storing your data in one database place, can you scatter it in such a way that even if some nodes of the IPFS file system goes down, your data is still there. As long as one node is there, your data is there. Now, the idea here is that, in my opinion, if you really ask me, we still are not truly decentralized in a way, but then we are moving towards that. People are worried about it. People are finding solutions which kind of, which we hope that we will be moving to a truly decentralized state in some point in time. Yeah.
And in this, I would like to add to what Pramod sir has just mentioned, guys, is that in fact, nowadays people are actually hosting websites on IPFS, which would mean that you get your web application. So we have to check how good that is in terms of web application. Simple HTML, CSS web pages and all, you can actually host them on IPFS itself. Okay, and people are doing that now. How good that is for for web application, like something developed in Angular or React or Vue. Uh, how will they perform? Even I need to check it out. But I think probably in the coming days you will see that this entire top block, which contains the database server, this one, and the web server and the database server, both these will be gone, and then you will have a truly decentralized application wherein there are no centralization uh, in terms of the web server or on the backend database also. So that is also, that is something that you are going to see very soon in the near future. So that is also going to happen, right? So you can actually put up websites, basic websites, but how far it is when it comes to web application frameworks, we need to check it out. But yeah, but I think probably sooner or later that is also going to happen. In which case, these two parts, okay, these two things, this part, this whole thing, which is actually centralized, okay, is going to become decentralized, completely decentralized, which would mean that your IPFS contains your web application and also the data that you want. So you will find that you will encounter a scenario where your application is always available, even if one node goes down in the blockchain, or a node goes down in IPFS also, it's still available on the rest. When it comes to the roadmap for becoming a Web3 developer, okay, now let us see. So how do you go about it? Okay, so I have prepared just few slides for you to go through. Very little amount of text, not too much of it, but I'll be giving you links and other resources for you to utilize. Okay, and again, remember, it's all a matter of persistence and practice that will make you better and better and better. Okay, so let me just go to my PowerPoint. Meanwhile, let me just check if there are any questions in there. Yeah, I see a lot of questions there. Okay. Learn about connection and integration, EtherJS, okay, and Rust language 2, social media, which has built VR and AR, basically virtual world. Okay, what are the questions? Is there any alternative to IPFS? which is not costly. Also, IPFS is approximately $100 per gigabyte. So, are there any alternatives for that, which is secure as IPFS, does not storing data in the central settlements? Yeah. Am I not audible?
Sir, you are audible now.
Yeah.
There was some sound issue like in between for a few seconds.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So now that you're saying that cost of IPFS is approximately $100 for 1 GB. Okay. So we will have free alternatives also. But then again, remember, you cannot have a truly free system developed for you. Okay. So somewhere the providers who are actually providing you with that service need to make money, right? So after all, they're shelling it out of their pockets, right? Or it's investors' money. So somewhere there has to be a way of this income being shared with either the investors or the developers or the community, right? So you will have to spend money, and if you see. If you're saying that it is approximately $100 per 1 GB, so let's just check it out because even I have not checked. So IPFS cost. It says IPFS has some guarantees, and blockchains. Okay. Running your EC2 T2 micro instance with EBS 25 gigs of storage would cost you about $15 per month. I think this is cheap, right? But then again, you have an EC2 instance running. Okay, EC2 instance running the IPFS, right? So I mean, there will be alternatives available which work like IPFS, but um, it's not going to be free. It may be cheaper, okay, but it's not going to be free. Obviously, there is investment involved in creating that infrastructure, so somebody has to pay for it, right? So that is something that you have to keep in mind. So you have to be prepared. After all, I mean, what is the purpose of your application? You are going to make money out of it, right? Sorry. So the purpose of building a distributed application is to basically provide a service in a distributed fashion, which takes the middleman out. It does not mean that you're not spending money. Remember that. It's very, very important for you to understand that. Okay. Praveen sir, would you like to pitch in here?
Yeah, no, I think very valid point. At the same time, there are different projects which are being built right now, such as Filecoin,
Yeah,
which are leveraging IPFS as technology, and they are leveraging their nodes. The point is that any technology, when it is built in the beginning, it really is expensive. But with time, I believe that this
cost goes
should
down.
become, yeah, it should become more affordable. But then again, there are incentivization mechanism around Filecoin with nodes, people who are storing. So for example, what really happens in all these distributed database bases, that what do you mean when you talk about IPFS? Basically, these are all distributed nodes who have taken the responsibility of running a program, which kind of handles the data storage, right? I mean, that's what it is basically, right? So the guys who are running these nodes, they need to be compensated in some way, right? So there would be cost. Otherwise, if there is no incentive for those guys for
Nobody will
participating,
join.
yeah, nobody
Yes,
will join. So there has to be some incentive mechanism. So I think that's how it starts with. And then, of course, there are different ways. As if you really think of the CPU cost today, and if you look at 20 years back, there is no comparison, right? So these things are
there is.
becoming cheaper. Storage is now you're talking about the GBs of storage in a mobile. I remember in my early days and Silva's early days, we were talking about MBs, right? We never thought
Right.
about GBs as well, right? So the question is that with time these things will change, but what is more important is the concept. And the concept is saying that, okay, don't store it in one place. For example, I'll give an example. If you are an NFT company, and if you are creating an NFT, and if you are storing your NFT file in your centralized database, you may have your hash key in your blockchain, But then tomorrow, for example, if the centralized server goes away, what will you do with the hash key? You cannot do anything. You cannot recover your NFT, right?
Exactly.
So you need something which is truly decentralized, in my opinion. So you will need to have a cost for now.
Sure. So that's what. So basically, so what Praveen sir is saying that this famous saying that says don't put all your all eggs in the same basket. That's what it is, right? So essentially, what you have to understand again, that's the reason I said when you start out as a Web3 developer, it's actually a mindset going away from centralized applications to decentralized. It's a change of mindset. Okay, it's not about not incurring costs. Remember that. That's very important. So even see, for instance, when you write smart contracts and deploy them on the test network for testing, okay, then also you have to have what to say test tokens. Without that, you cannot deploy and run your smart contracts as well, whether it is Polkadot Kusama network or any of the test networks of Ethereum. Also, you need the faucets to get hold of some test coins or fake coins, and then you use that. That incentive mechanism has to be there. Okay, it is not like the only important thing you're doing is that you are taking away your dependency on one single entity to an entire distributed network. That is what you have to understand when it comes to the decentralized application development. Okay, so that is where the whole mindset actually has to change. So this is something that you got to keep in mind. Okay, so so if you look at the developer roadmap in here, okay, so basically what is the skill prerequisites? So as far as the prerequisite is concerned, all you need to know is basically programming knowledge in some programming language. Okay, it could be even Python, fine enough. What is the reason behind it? See, when I say programming knowledge, I do not mean, remember one very important thing, I do not mean knowing the syntaxes of the language. What I mean to say when I say programming knowledge is you should be in a position to develop logic based on a problem statement. That's very important. That which would mean that today, if I give you a problem, you should be in a position to develop the logic behind it and then finally implement it. So basically, your programming language is just a tool to implement the logic that you have come up with, right? So this is very important. So when I say programming knowledge in some programming language, it does not mean the syntaxes or the semantics of the language. It means you are in a position to develop code based on a problem statement. That is one thing. Okay. Another important thing. So, I mean, you don't really have to know Rust or JavaScript or anything of that sort. Okay. As far as the prerequisites are concerned, if you are able to develop a 10 or 15 lines of code or maybe 100 lines of code, depending upon the complexity of the problem, all by yourself. Okay. Then you are good to go. Even if not, then obviously your learning curve will be a little steeper compared to the others. And the only thing is, again, remember, it's patience and persistence. These are the two key ingredients, okay, in order to be able to develop these smart contracts. Because ultimately, the smart contracts have to be developed in some programming language. So if you know one programming language, okay, it's just a matter of mostly change of the syntax. But if you know how to build logic, that is what is actually needed. And of course, there's some amount of the language structure, how various languages are implemented, because you see every programming language is developed and designed with some specific application domain in mind. So another important thing that I would like to tell you is that generally what happens is that when you learn a language, okay, and you already know one language beforehand, you tend to do a comparison. I have seen this happen time and again, time and again, time and again. Like for instance, if you're developing Java, learning JavaScript and then try to write some code and stuff like that, you will see you'll keep comparing. Suppose if you're coming from a Java background, you'll say, "Hey, Java does all of this for me. Why doesn't it work in JavaScript?" No, you have to understand. Basically, if you see Björn Strostrup, who actually developed the C++ language. Okay, in his website and in his one of his interviews, which I actually happened to see, he said that the first question that anybody asks is, why C++? If you can do it in C, or C is doing this and C++ is not doing that, and so on and so forth. His reply is, don't compare. It's like comparing Taj Mahal with the Eiffel Tower, right? So do not compare, because when a programming language is developed, it is developed and designed in a certain way based on the application for which it is going to be used. Now, it does not restrict a language to be used with other applications as well. Okay, so if you say Python, it was primarily built to be used by people who have very little programming skills, and so they came up with a language which is very easy to use, right? So it's an easy to use language. Now, because primarily it was developed for doing bioinformatics and stuff like that. So people who are in biology, they don't know computer science, right? So I think this is something that I mentioned during the HackFest also. So what they would do is they would hire a developer to do that. Now, the biology guys don't understand programming. The developer does understand programming, but he doesn't understand biology. So it's actually a mishmash, and there will always be communication gaps, which will render uh, the code to be not to be as good as it should be. Okay, so that is where the whole objective of developing Python programming language was to keep it easy, so that it's very easy for even a biologist to actually start working on it. And now, since you are going into the Web3 development, obviously you need to know basics of blockchain, what blockchain is, okay, how the whole distributed mechanism actually works, what value add it brings to the table when I shift over from centralized to decentralized application using blockchains. So basic understanding of blockchain and its inner workings is a must. If not, you can always read upon material. One little what to say resource that I would like to show you here is this. There is a book by IBM which says blockchain for dummies. It's actually quite a nice book. It's available on the IBM site also, and you can download a PDF version which is free. Okay, so you can download this book, and actually you can go through this. It doesn't talk about all the advanced stuff, the core fundamentals, and in a very easy to you understand language. It's a very nice book. Very nice book. Okay, blockchain for dummies. This is, I think, probably the second edition is available on the IBM's website. Okay, so you can download it. Just you have to register with your email, and they'll give you a link, and you can download that book, and you can use it. It's a simple PDF. So which essentially tells you what a blockchain is, and what is consensus mechanism, what are oracles, and all the basic concepts. Okay, so which gets you going and gives you an understanding of how to look at blockchain as a potential technological replacement for the existing, many of the existing centralized applications. Now, one more thing you have to understand. Again, blockchain is not one size fits all solution. Now, you have to understand one of the very important things is that not every application is conducive to be, made as a distributed application. Okay, so don't think blockchain is the solution, because in fact, I mentioned that during our Hyderabad HackFest also. So when you look at a blockchain, the definition says a distributed ledger or distributed database. Okay, the moment you hear database, you think that okay, blockchain is going to be replacement for database. No, that is not going to happen. And blockchain is not meant for data storage. It is primarily meant for transaction storage. That is what you have to remember. So wherever there are transactions going on, blockchain is a very good solution for that. Okay, so don't think that blockchain is the solution for every kind of application. No. Okay, it has got its use cases, particularly in the finance and insurance and all those domains, including gaming. Um, and Praveen sir actually explained to you there are so many different use cases in there in different domains, so you can use them like in agriculture and so on and so forth. Okay, so you can use that. Definitely it is an IoT, so a lot of IoT applications are being developed there, because in IoT device, continuous stream of data comes in, and you need to have a permanent storage so that later, at some point in time later, you can actually access that data, and then you can process it and come to some sort of a conclusion, or whatever may be the problem statement. So those things you can do. So blockchain for dummies is a very nice book which you can utilize. Okay, very easy to read. It's actually pretty fun to read book. Okay, so look for this book. The PDFs is available. Okay, and again, this is free of cost from the IBM website. Okay, and you'll find it in so many different places, so you can download and read through that. Okay. So let's see. Any questions? Okay, so what is this? Who's in it? Kuzer 618. So, sir, does not storing data in a single center can save a lot of memory instead of storing it on multiple systems? Is it not that for such infrastructure to work properly, each and every node database system should be capable of having the features of one centralized system? Kindly answer my question. Is JS IPS connected to the DHT? Okay, right. So again, remember, as I mentioned, okay, you have to understand the whole point. Yes, uh, it would be infrastructure wise, because it is distributed. Uh, it would be expensive if one specific organization were to do that. But here, what happens in blockchain is that even I can take my laptop or my machine at home, and I can join the network and become a node. I can run a node and um expand on the existing blockchain. Okay, right now. So Puneet, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. So the first thing you have to understand is that that is the reason. See, these public blockchains. When you say public blockchain, what actually happens is that anyone can become part of the network by running the node software. It's as simple as that. Okay, so it is not like you are investing heavily on the entire distributed infrastructure. Okay, so uh, so what is important for you to understand is that anybody can participate in the network. It's actually completely voluntary. That's the beauty of this whole technology, right? Which would mean that if I want, I can simply join the network, download the node software, run it, and then up and go. So that's where there is a complete tokenomics built around, so that whoever joins the network and becomes a node, they have to be incentivized in some form. Otherwise, who will volunteer for it? Right? It is not a philanthropy, because you are incurring cost, because you spent money on the machine, you are spending money on electricity. Okay, as long as it is online, you are spending money on the the internet connection and so on and so forth. So somewhere there has to be some sort of a compensation mechanism built into it, right? So it is not like one person is doing the entire distributed network. It's actually people are joining to the network, and the network expands. So, Kuzet, does that answer your question? So I think it's not all. Yeah, Kuzet. So you meant to say it doesn't answer your question? Okay. Anyway, so let me get back to Puneet's question. Okay, this my doubt is if I can join the network, then my system should be capable to hold large amount of data. Yes, that's true. That is true. But then, scaling solutions are coming up, because okay, like for instance, you take Polygon. Okay, so now what is happening is that your question is absolutely valid, and this is the kind of question you should be asking. Like for instance, Bitcoin networks blockchain is around 14 gigs. So obviously that much amount of storage space you need, apart from having computational power to do mining as well. So but in a proof of stake, what is happening? So now that you don't need very high computing power, but definitely storage is needed. Now what is happening over a period of time, the blockchain keeps growing, and so on. So obviously you need to have sufficient storage, large amount of storage. That's where the partitioning and sharding of these blockchains, okay, is now being implemented. Like that. That's what Polygon does it. Okay. So there are solutions available where you don't have to store the entire blockchain, okay, but parts of it, and they will be assembled together by the infrastructure software which is running. Okay, so that you don't have to, even if you join the network, you don't have to, basically have a copy and hold huge amount of data. Okay, so there are solutions available. Okay. And Puneet, you're saying it's an off-topic question. So you meant to say that you have to pay money for storage when you implement the idea. Okay, so let's get to the implementation stage and then we will answer that question. Okay, so let us park it for now, right? Okay, so I see. Right. By the way, so Kuzet, does that answer your question? So there are sharding and partitioning available, which you can actually utilize. Okay, so you don't have to copy the entire data. However, if you're joining the Bitcoin network, it's a different story altogether. So now in Bitcoin network, what they are doing is you don't directly join into a network. Instead, what people do for mining is that because mining has become very expensive, so the kind of rewards you get out of mining doesn't really compensate for your investment in terms of the energy spent and all those things. So what happens is you join a mining pool and you provide your computational power to that pool which it will use. Okay, and then and if the pool happens to basically um, mine the block, then in that case whatever mining rewards they receive, it's distributed across all the members of the pool. So those pooling mechanisms are there. Okay, so such mechanisms are available. Okay, which people do make use of. Okay. Right. Any other question? Okay. So Deepak, it's almost 7. So can we have 10 minutes break?
Sure, I think we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can pause the recording and then continue after. So anyway, so this is 7:10. We'll reconvene. Okay, guys.
Okay, sure.
Okay. So let me share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Not yet.
Yeah, we can see now.
Is it visible now?
Yes, it's visible. It's visible.
Right. So let me on to the roadmap. Okay. So required skills. Okay. Now, if you are going to get into Polkadot development, then obviously Rust programming is something that you need to know. Anyway, so as part of this continuing education program, we are going to have Rust sessions as well planned for you. Okay, and you should be good to go. Now, if you're already, you know, doing some amount of Rust programming, intermediate level is good enough to start with. Okay. Now, also, because you're going to do the Polkadot development, and we use the Substrate framework to a great extent. Okay. So you should have basic understanding of what Substrate framework really is. Okay. And how various palettes and how the various bits and pieces of the entire framework, okay, fit into one single entity, which allows you to do the development using Rust as your programming language. Now, this is for those who want to do custom blockchain development. So definitely Substrate framework would be useful. Okay. Now, if you're going into Ethereum development, then obviously Solidity programming happens to be the most popular programming language. Apart from, there are other programming languages like Viper and stuff like that. So you would need to know that, and obviously knowledge of development frameworks like Truffle, Hardhat, Ganache, and all those tool chain is something that you would need to know. Okay. Now, one important thing for you to really understand is that since we are focusing more on the Polkadot development, so obviously we have planned Rust development sessions for you guys in the upcoming sessions. Right? So you will know how to make use of Rust and how Rust actually internally works, and all those things will be coming. Okay. Now, as far as what if the basic question is, if you want to become a full stack DApp developer, what do you need? Obviously, you're going to have front end, which would require you to understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, to build the front end, and a knowledge of any of the front end frameworks like Angular, React, or Vue would definitely be an added advantage. Also, as far as CSS is concerned, CSS frameworks like Bootstrap, Tailwind CSS, Semantic UI, so such frameworks are also useful because that make your life pretty easy because they come pre-packaged with different types of components, and you don't have to write too much of code. So just copy the code from the documentation, put it, and then customize it for your needs. Now, coming to the backend or the middleware, I'm saying backend and middleware both. Okay, because when you put a smart contract, okay. So the smart contract could be your backend, or it could also be in the middle layer, wherein you would have a true backend which actually stores the data like the IPFS, which I was talking about. Now, when you want to do development of smart contracts, okay, for Polkadot, we use a programming language. It's not really a programming language, but Ink is what is used. Okay, it's actually spelled out like this: Ink with a exclamation mark. Okay, it's essentially Rust. Okay, so it's what they've done is to make the contract development easy. What they've done is that they have used Rust and they have built a DSL for developing smart contracts. Okay, so what is a DSL? DSL is called as domain specific language, which means it's an extension to the Rust language, which allows you to develop smart contracts very easily with a lesser amount of code. Okay, so that's what this DSL is all about. Okay, and if you're doing it, if you're doing development on Ethereum, so obviously, as I mentioned in the previous slide, so it's Solidity programming. Okay, so which you would need to know. Now, since we are concentrating and focusing more on the Polkadot ecosystem, so obviously Rust and Ink is something that you would have to use. Okay, I'll point you out to the resources which you can utilize. Okay, and I will also send out a set of links in the Discord so that you can refer it to it later as well. Okay.
One
And
comment
in
here.
addition, yeah, sure.
So before you go further, one comment here. We had a very interesting session on Ink from the Polkadot expert. So you can go and Deepak, please ensure that that is already available on our IBC Media YouTube channel. You can go and watch that session to get some idea about Ink.
Yeah, you could definitely do that. Yes. Okay, and apart from that, you would need IPFS for data storage. Okay, if your use case actually requires that. Okay. So these are essentially the tool chains that you would need to use if you're doing core product. One is basically Rust and Ink as substrate, followed by if you need IPFS. Knowledge of IPFS will definitely be a big plus because many of the upcoming tabs do require larger amount of data storage, and we don't want to put all the data on the blockchain. Instead, we want to store it in the IPFS, like as I mentioned, for videos and audio if you want to share, or uh, there are applications which are equivalent to YouTube where you can watch videos, but they are all stored on IPFS and then they are pulled in and then they are streamed across to your system. Okay, so if you are building something like that, you would definitely need IPFS. And actually, IPFS is extremely easy to use. It's not difficult at all. There are JavaScript APIs available, and you can utilize that. Okay. So essentially, that is the toolchain that you would need. Now let's go on to the resources that you would need. Okay. So let me just point them out to you. So for Rust programming, go to the rustlang.org site. And here you see there is an installation guide available which you can utilize to install that. And there is this learning resource available. When you go to the learning resource, here is the read the book. This is what you should be reading. So this is also, it also goes by the name of the Rust book. Okay. And I think it is available in PDF format as well. You can download that. It's really available. So if you go to this, it will go take you to the Rust book. Okay. And there it is. So here is the menu. So all the, all the different topics in here, right from references, right from the keywords to all the different, types of things, including advanced features like, traits and types and stuff like that. Okay. So you can definitely go to this. So let me just put this in the chat window. Okay. So take this, and this would be a very nice resource for you to have. Okay. It explains everything. Apart from that, there is an associated thing, associated, what to say, resource which goes by the name of Rust by example. You can use this as well. So for different types of, topics, they have given some example code which you can actually utilize. It's actually pretty nice. Okay. But what I would recommend is that first you go through the the Rust book and then come here, because what happens is you would have understood the, if you are new to Rust, then it's better to go with the Rust book and then come to this. Okay. And so because here, if you take flow of control, like say for instance if else's and for statements and so on and so forth, you will find that here in this page, okay, they are given some sample code with some explanation which you can utilize, run it and see and understand how these things actually work. Okay. So this will reduce the amount of time that you would require to type this and then uh, try to learn how to do programming with Rust. So Rust by example is another resource. Again, this is from the uh, Rustlang site itself, so you can use, these are the two official. Other than that, one more thing I really like, if you want to do that, so let me just show you. There is a, let's get Rusty YouTube channel. Okay. So this is a channel, and to go through. Okay, so you can use this. Let's get trusty. Okay. So if you see the playlist, you will find Rust Bytes, Rust News, Idiomatic Rust Memory, and the Rust Lang book. So in this one is what I was talking about. So he has basically taken the Rust Lang book and explained all the concepts in there. Okay. So if you're a lazy reader, probably you can do that. But I would definitely recommend that you read through this. And it talks about this the memory management in Rust. Okay, then idiomatic Rust, how idiomatic Rust can be used, and any updates. Okay, so all those things. This is a pretty nice channel. Okay, and it keeps and this guy keeps updating this pretty often. Okay, right. So you can definitely go through this. This is as far as the Rust language goes. Okay. Right. And all the new features which are coming in, like say for instance, the async functions and traits are finally here. He says, but what I would recommend, first you read through or go through the entire Rust book, then come to this place, because there are this async function implementation is still not stable. Okay, there are some shortcomings in there. Those shortcomings, if I were to explain that, so basically, it's the design of the language is not very conducive for async functions. So what is happening is they are coming up with some workarounds and mechanisms to make it work. Like for instance, if you see, I'll give you a simple example. Uh, you know, Java fundamentally never allowed, when it was designed, it was not meant for functional programming. Okay, so basically what happened was, there was this limitation. So what happened was, there was a lot of emphasis on functional programming. Okay, so I'm not going to go into delve deeper into what functional programming is all about. However, you should know that that's again a programming paradigm, which is pretty common in many of the languages like Python, Perl, and all those things. So what happened was that um, so Java language as such, because you see with functional programming there is one little hitch, and that hitch is that usually functional programming is easy when you don't have strongly typed languages. It's actually easy to implement in loosely typed languages, not statically typed languages. But Java is strongly typed. So they came up with so they had this interfaces concept through which they are actually implementing it. But when you do that, you can only go this far. That's it. After that, you will start seeing the limitations of the strongly typed language nature coming into play. So of course, Java, team has done a pretty good job of getting these in functional programming paradigm implemented in the language. Okay, but fundamentally, it's because it's a strongly typed language. It's not that straightforward to use. So you ultimately end up with lots and lots of all kinds of interfaces that you tend to use, because they tend to become a sort of generics. So a combination of interfaces with generics actually allowed them to bring in the functional programming aspects of it. So we'll not get into the details of it. Okay, or you should know that there will always be limitations of implementing all kinds of programming paradigms because of the core nature of the language and the way it was designed. Okay. So when it comes to, so once you have gone through Rust, the next thing you would want is to understand if you're going to do substrate development. So if you go to the substrate.io site, okay, so for the developers, they have given, so one thing that I would like you to understand is that Polkadot architecture is something that you have to understand in order to be able to effectively build, or do any development on Polkadot ecosystem. Okay, that's very important, because if you look at the way Polkadot has been designed, is to bring multiple isolated blockchains, okay, into one single ecosystem, which allows you to basically exchange data, okay, across multiple and disparate blockchains. That's what the whole aim of the Polkadot ecosystem itself is. Now remember, uh, who started this project? It was started with none other than Gavin Woods himself. And you should and Gavin Woods was the co-founder of Ethereum, okay, along with Vitalik Buterin. So Vitalik Buterin is the founder, and Gavin Woods was actually the co-founder. So he knew that the limitations of Ethereum when it comes to building scalable applications that work across chains, and that is how he started out with the Polkadot. The concept of Polkadot as a mechanism for data exchange across disparate systems, disparate blockchains. Okay. So you should know the basic architecture, like what are the different players. And I think we already have given you the PPTs containing the architecture and the various elements, like what is a parachain, what is a parathread, what is a relay chain, okay, what is cross-chain messaging protocol, and so on and so forth. So you have to understand these basics in order to be effective in developing on the Polkadot ecosystem using Substrate. Okay. So for the developers, you have these docs, Rust docs, and then there is also a playground here, which you could use, and how to write smart contracts. So if you go to the smart contracts thing, okay, there is this contracts palette available, how to write smart contracts, and you see, learn to build and deploy. So this is basically a small, tutorial sort. Okay, definitely a good read through, very nice and very easy to follow along. Okay, so this is something that you can utilize, and also go to the Substrate documentation to understand how to get started, the basics of blockchain, why the Substrate, what is the architecture, how to build a local blockchain, okay, how to create a network. Okay, when you say network, it means you are creating a distributed blockchain, not just with one node, but with multiple nodes. Okay, so all those things you can do. And to get more technical for a deeper dive, so into the source code, you have the Rust for Substrate, and you have the Rust APIs and the core libraries and stuff. So start from the left side, blockchain basics, Substrate, and the architecture, then go on to building the. So in our tech sessions, build with the trainer sessions, we are going to do all of that. Many of you already have the virtual machine with you, so keep that in handy. So when we go on to the Substrate thing, you will need all of that. Okay, so how you can add a palette from the existing palettes and so on and so forth. So if you look at the architecture of Substrate, so this is the high level overview. Okay. So you have these other nodes in the network. So you have the Wasm runtime. Okay, now do remember, Wasm is an upcoming technology which you should know, which allows basically to kind of uh, run your applications within the browser with a kind of a bytecode that is developed, okay, which is completely browser agnostic. So what will happen is your application will run with any browser that you can think of. Okay, so you can go through this, okay, and various consensus algorithms. So if you see here in the consensus part, so you have the block authoring and finalization phases. Okay, what is meant by this and so on. So just go through these. Okay, the more you read from the official docs, the more you will understand the whole ecosystem and how they integrate together and get things done. Okay, so if you go to the docs section, here it is, and getting hands-on and getting technical and so on. Okay, so you can go through this. So if you want, let's say, want to understand Rust for Substrate, so here is all that you will need. Okay? All the different types of traits that they have built in, okay, and all those different things. Okay, and why you want to use Substrate? The first is tailored to a specific use cases, able to connect and communicate with other blockchains. It is customizable with predefined composable modular components, able to evolve and change, okay, with upgrades over time. So it allows soft forks rather than hard forks. Okay, right. So there is an entire architecture of different kinds of palettes which are available, which you can put together. So palettes are nothing but small modules that you can organize together into one project to build your own customized blockchain. Okay, and you can customize them uh, to the extent that you want, and also you can uh, build your own custom palettes and add to that. So anyway, so you're going to learn all of that as part of the technical sessions. Okay, so that is the substrate for you. Okay, so if you look for in the substrate documentation, if you look for palettes, so here are the frame palettes. So frame is the environment which was modules. So these are basically palettes are nothing but modules and support libraries. Okay, they have frame benchmarking, frame executive, frame support, and frame system. So these are all the system palette names. There are some functional palettes. Okay, so these are all the functional. Let me just increase the font size. Okay, a lot of palettes are already there. Okay, then you have the palettes for parachains. Okay, all these you can utilize them. Like for instance, let me just show you here. One is a very common, uh, say, palette balances. Okay, so this is a very commonly utilized. It provides functionality for handling accounts and balances. So if you want to have accounts and balances in your blockchain, so you can use this palette, add it to your blockchain, and lo and behold, you'll have a blockchain that stores account information as well as the various what to say balances associated with those accounts and so on. Okay, I think I have we have some question in there. Oh, here it is. I think Deepak has put up the link for the you know uh, Parroties Inc. Workshop. So please do go through this. Okay, it will be a nice introduction for you to utilize Inc. for writing smart contracts. And also, if you see, you will also find palette contract. So this is the one. So if you want smart contracts, not just transaction data, but also smart contracts on top of your blockchain, you will have to add this palette contract, which they have already built. Okay. So it provides functionality for the runtime to deploy and execute WebAssembly smart contracts. So if you click on this, it will give you details of this palette. Okay. What is gas? What is the interface? Okay. And if you see all items, it will show you all of these. What are the modules, structs, enums, and trades, and type conversions? Everything that is needed for running yeah, smart contracts on top of it. Okay, right. So there is an address generator. There's a contracts API to run your contracts. Okay, so all of this. So you can, so basically palettes are the modules which you can take and put it, and then finally build your custom blockchain for whatever use case that you have. Okay, so this is our events and how you write the code for it and so on and so forth. Okay, lots and lots of information is available, believe me, lots and lots of information is available. Anyway, once we go through this Rust sessions, you will also be able to understand what this specific line means, what this line means, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you won't have any issues with that. But then again, what we will cover in the session, you have to go beyond that in order to effectively implement the idea that you have actually come up with. That's very important. Okay, as far as the Inc. programming language is concerned, okay. Where it is Inc. to write smart contracts. So that's what I said. So Inc. is spelled like this: INK, all lowercase, and then followed by a exclamation mark. So they have this. You can just view that on GitHub also. So if you go to the GitHub and look at this, so this gives you all. So just if you see here, the hello world, the flipper, basically it flips the true and false state okay, of a value. So this is a smart contract which does that. Okay, so you would understand what this does. Okay, so flip its value from true to false and vice versa, and then there is another function for returning the current state. Okay, so mod means module. So this is in contract. Okay, this is again an annotation, and you will see this script. There are a lot of examples. Okay, so in the examples folder, you find number of examples written in ink, like delegator, trait, ERC20, ERC721, and FT tokens, and for the domain name service, and so on and so forth. Okay, so and macros and attributes overview. Here you will find all the macros in here, and then the trait definitions, all those things. Okay. Now it's actually quite easy to use. It's not difficult at all. So if you go back in here and if you see this play with it. Okay, so how to install that? Okay, followed by the flipper smart contract, which flips a value. Okay, not too much of code as such. Okay, now so this is how you make use of the ink smart contract program. Okay, it's nothing but pure Rust. Okay, it's just a Rust DSL. So which means that inside the smart contract you can write basic true Rust code also. So essentially what it does is that on top of the Rust language, it brings in, like, say for instance, an annotation like this. Okay, ink contract. So you have this ink storage for storing data. Okay, ink constructor for defining a constructor. Okay, ink message to take in a message. Okay, and again there is ink message to return a value, and so on and so forth. That's it. And here is basically a test configuration. That's it. So if you see, it's not that difficult. So you write basically Rust code, and for the methods and all those things that you're implementing, so you just put ink annotations, and that's it. Your smart contracts are ready to be deployed on the blockchain. Okay, that should not be difficult at all. So let me. So this is your link for language. So you will need to go through this. But again, remember, first I would request you to essentially go through the Rust language itself. Then you can go on to the ink smart contract language. Okay. Right. Any questions for me, please, at this stage? Okay. So now, important thing. Now that you want to be a Web3 developers, the first thing you should know is how to write smart contracts. So that's the reason I've been, concentrating in this talk mostly on the smart contract side of it. Okay. So first off, you need to understand what exactly is a smart contract. It's just a piece of code that is actually deployed on the chain, and it executes. Okay. And it executes the code whenever certain event happens, or whenever you are interacting with the with the smart contract. Okay, so essentially it's a piece of code. But again, remember, because this is deployed on the blockchain, what will happen? It will get distributed across the entire network. So your smart contract is always available, almost always available. Okay, so that is how you have to look at it, right? Now, as far as the storage part of it is concerned, wherein we use the IPFS for storage, you can just look for this IPFS.tech. The IPFS powers the distributed. So again, remember, so there is a small install guide. There's a documentation in there how you can use that. Okay. So if you see the whole IPFS also works very similar to blockchain. Okay, in fact, to be more precise, it's more like a torrent. Okay, wherein the entire file is distributed into chunks, okay, across the entire distributed network. And also what happens is it uses what is called as content-based routing. Okay, right? So what it means is that whatever file you put, no matter what the name is, when you upload a file onto IPFS, what you will get is something called as a CID. Okay. Now, this is not the CID of our police department, but this is content ID. So you'll get a hash. That hash becomes your identification mechanism to identify the file and then download it or use it the way you want it. You can get it from the IPFS and then you can utilize that data. Okay. So now important thing that you have to understand here is that when you build applications, like say for instance, if I'm building a social networking app in a distributed fashion, and I'm putting the, let's say, audio and video files on it, how different is it from a centralized social media app like probably, like say for instance, Facebook or Instagram and so on, so or even YouTube? So you have to understand something again, as I mentioned right at the outset. So it's a change of mindset. Okay, so you have to understand the whole point is that when you are using or when you're putting up data using a Web3 application, okay, compared to Web2 application like say Facebook. So for instance, if I upload a video on YouTube, okay, who does this video belong to? Who has the control on that video once you put it onto YouTube? Obviously, Google. Okay, so if they want, they can simply remove the video or they can change the title. They can do whatever they want, essentially, basically, right? That's what is actually happening when you have a centralized system in there. So what happens in a centralized system, when you upload some data, that data does not belong to you anymore. It belongs to the platform onto which you have actually uploaded, be it your profile pic, be it your profile, be it anything that you put on that, whether it is Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever may be the case. So once you put anything on top of the platform owns it. The owners of the platform can do anything with that data what you have. But here in distributed web applications, what happens is when let's say for instance I'm trying to build uh, a Web3 Facebook equivalent. Okay, so what will happen? Or Web3 equivalent of let's say Twitter. Then the important thing with this is that you basically, whatever data you put, you own that data. You are the owner of the data, not the platform. Okay, you are the participant and you are also owner of all the data you put on that platform. Now this is a completely different mental model that you have to mental model. So your thought process has to change. So if I put something on my profile, it belongs to me and I am the owner. I can do whatever I want. The platform doesn't do it for me, or they don't have control on that. Okay, that's the biggest difference. Okay, between the centralized applications and its decentralized counterpart. I hope that makes it clear, right? So what happens to whatever data I put? If I put it on a centralized platform, the platform owns the data. But when I put it on a distributed platform, then I own the data. I can do whatever I want with that data. Okay, the platform does not own it. It's a complete paradigm shift in the way you use the data when you're putting it up and making it available to the public to see, right? That is something that you have. So you have the power, you have the control of whatever data that you have put up. So that is something that you have to really understand. Okay, so you can actually run a local node, or you can join the IPFS existing network and you can start using it. Of course, there's as I mentioned earlier, so there has to be some incentivization mechanism. So obviously there will be some amount of cost involved, and as Praveen sir rightly mentioned, as time goes by, the cost will come down and down and down and down. So it will become pretty affordable. Okay, it is affordable even now also, but it will become even more affordable as time goes by. So it's actually a peer-to-peer hypermedia protocol. So it's actually a peer-to-peer file system. Okay, it is not centralized. It's a peer-to-peer. So when you're accessing the network and getting some data, it comes directly from the node that actually holds that data. And if you want to know more, you can actually click on this, how it works, and it will show you exactly how this is working. So this is a CID, the content identifier. So what happens on IPFS? So when you add a file to IPFS, your file is split into smaller chunks. Cryptographically, it is hashed and then given a unique fingerprint called content identifier. The CID acts as a permanent record of your file as it exists at that point in time. Okay, that is the beauty of this. Okay, it's a peer-to-peer network, so obviously it's going to be quite fast. Okay, quite fast, and the more participants or nodes there are in this network, the faster it becomes over a period of time. Okay, right. So that's IPFS. Now, as I mentioned, when you want to become a complete full stack developer, so you see what happens in the industry. And Praveen sir, I will need your inputs also on this side. Is that
Mhm.
there is when we say Web3 developer, so generally there are people who write smart contracts. They should be good with writing smart contracts and in an efficient manner so that the cost comes down. However, if you have front-end development experience as well, it's a uh, it's like um, uh, topping on top, sugar topping on top of the cake. Okay, definitely it helps a lot. Okay, because you now have varied skill sets which can be utilized. So you could be a one-man army who can develop the application end to end. Okay, Praveen sir, I would like to have some input from your side.
So yeah, so basically, I think in my opinion, front end skills that people have from Web 2, most of it is applicable here as well.
Exactly.
But then, yeah, but then for sure you will need to understand some of these libraries which kind of help these front end applications access the backend stuff, which is different here, right? I mean, from the Web
Yes.
2 paradigm.
Right.
So that way it is important, and especially another thing which is also pretty interesting, and that at least I feel that way, is that if you look at Web3 right now, it is just not limited to the plain applications, but then it really goes into metaverses, which has AR, VR, which has got all these immersive technologies, which have you know uh, NFTs embedded into them. So I think it really becomes pretty interesting, and I agree with Selva sir here that the this particular space is pretty exciting, guys. And we talked yesterday as well, that it is all the information is available somewhere. It is not that these information pieces are not available. What Selva sir is right now trying to do is to put a structure, or is to give a structure to everything that you really need to do. Okay, and then today, after he does this today, then of course we'll have deep in technical sessions start in the next module. uh, but then I think all these information pieces are available now.
Yes.
The quest should come from you, the
Yes.
desperation should come from you, the hunger should come from you, right? Like he's showing IPFS. Now IPFS is a technology which is going to be the future, which is already being used. There are many applications which are being built on this technology, and Selva mentioned here, these are all basically peer-to-peer, P2P lib, kind of applications where all these peers talk to each other, and they just try to see that who has the content, right? I mean, it is not that all of the content will be there with you. The content could be with others. So these interactions are very important.
Yeah.
So
So
these
the
interactions are
whole
very
protocol.
important.
Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. So, like, there are applications. I was talking about Filecoin, which is pretty interesting
Yes.
application. And in one of the conferences in Polygon Connect last week, I kind of met these guys, and they are building things. They are trying to create their own node infrastructure. own validator nodes, and it again follows the same principles of node management and consensus, and agreements on the next basically node. So look, the fundamental premise still remains the same. Fundamental premise does not change, but then the usability and applications are too huge, in my opinion.
Yes,
Selva?
yes, true, true. So what is happening? See, the whole point here is that this is right now we are still in the nascent stage. This is the right time to hop onto this bandwagon. The so because you will be part of a community which is trying to mature this technology, wherein in future the future generations are going to see decentralized applications, right? So you will be the proponents of this technology, taking it forward to the next generation, right? So there are a lot of opportunities available. There are a lot of R&D opportunities available to make this technology even more robust than what it is today, and so on and so forth. So the scope is limitless as of now. Okay, because you see what happens is when the technology is in nascent stage, you become a contributor to development of that technology. Once the technology matures, you become part of a team which builds applications and which others consume. You're not part of a team that is actually building the technology itself. So right now this is the time where you will be part of a team that will be building the technology for the future use. So that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I would say that when you are joining these sessions, of course, Deepak will talk about the email that you're using for participating. These emails will kind of earn you some certificates of participation. So please look forward to Deepak's communication on, or our social media's managers communication on the Discord. But one more point, Silva sir, I want to mention here is
Yes.
basically, a lot of effort IBC Media is putting in creating a content which is pretty structured, which really takes you through this journey pretty comprehensively. But then, like I requested yesterday, I would need your contribution. I would need your effort in these things. Otherwise, these things cannot happen. So we need to make sure that whatever Selva sir is telling you, you go back, spend some time, and be good at it. Number one. Number two is that tomorrow there is very interesting session that we are hosting, which will expose you to all the problem statements that have been given to us by our sponsors of hackathon. And right now I am working with my team to kind of help you traverse through that journey, help you start working in those. And you know what, our sponsors are pretty excited about it, and they would be helping you in making when you do these things, but they would also like to see whether you are putting some effort. And that will be pretty exciting. And please, again, wait on any communication from Deepak, and Deepak will tell you as to what all are the things that you could kind of build
Uh,
in this
Praveen sir,
process.
actually we lost you.
uh, can you hear me? Am I audible, Silva?
Yeah, we
Deepak,
can hear you. Hello, sir, we can hear you. And
Yes,
Praveen, sir.
we can hear you.
Yeah, so no, what I was saying, if you guys can hear me, that we will be
yeah,
having
now.
another very interesting session tomorrow, and Deepak will be giving you insights about that. And in that, we will be, showing you a glimpse of what all problem statements are there for you to kind of work on. And I'm pretty sure there will be several things in that process: learning, directly interacting with the with the sponsors, and third, if you are consistent in that, then you also have an opportunity to win a good amounts of prizes there. So guys, I think it really is going to be very interesting. I would request all of you, and all of you people who could not make it today, please join for sure tomorrow, and participate in that in our session. Deepak?
Yes, Absolutely. And so it's what Praveen sir is saying. It's quite interesting because we are working and seeing a lot of your presentations, the guys who have submitted it, and we are trying to identify which tracks would fit you the most so as to handhold you and help you through this hackathon journey. And the tracks and the sponsor tracks that we are talking about. So the best thing about those tracks is that our sponsors are eager to interact and face questions from you all on our Discord. You'll find a lot of track categories being made. There's a Fala track, there's a polka dot track, there's a um, there are the unique track and many more. Like there's robonomics and all. So the exciting thing about tomorrow's session is that you will get to know how by participating in these tracks you can win. Right, you like we're talking about real money here. So when you win, when I say you win, that means that you build some simple interesting things, the do some simple tasks, not even build, do some simple tasks and take a good incentive by doing that. And at the same time you get an opportunity to interact with global level developers and thought leaders in the blockchain space, and it's all happening free of cost. I mean, it's just the like Praveen sir and Silva sir are saying, that it's just the effort that you have to put in and just the time that you have to allocate to this entire process, and we are going to make this easy for you. Just if you just follow the process, the things that we are saying here, I think it's going to be incredible. Like, no, I have been in this space for some time now. I don't see anybody doing what we are doing, and in such a structured way, and like taking each step with students and helping them grow at the same time, also making sure that they open doors to win, by participating, by learning, by building, and just become a hackathon participant, like hardcore developer and builder. So make sure you join tomorrow, and obviously then tomorrow is the last day of module 1. Module 2 will be some more serious things happening tomorrow, after that, and we'll share the proper schedule obviously by tomorrow. But make sure that you join in tomorrow, and you ask your friends also to join in, and people who may not have been part of HackFest, but make sure that they join, because it's going to be really really exciting to know new things that we have set in for tomorrow's agenda. So I think that covers pretty much it what we have in plate for tomorrow. But I would re-emphasize again that tomorrow is pretty much everything about the tracks that we have in the IBC's hackathon space. And guys, it's all happening parallelly. We are helping you build, we are helping you, we are equipping you, in the technical skills, and at the same time we are encouraging you to learn about our tracks, and at the same time we are guiding you to which track you would be preferable for your own ideas, and the end point being that you come out winning and come out building, do some simple task and increase your knowledge and get some incentives in the end. And I can't emphasize that enough, how exciting that becomes once you get into the ecosystem. I think that's about it. Praveen sir, Salva sir, if there's anything else you would want to add, please.
Yeah, just one point that uh, uh, thank you all for your patience for joining. Okay, in these online sessions. The most important thing, by the end of this whole journey, you will be in a different league altogether. Believe me, and it will take you places. That's all I want to add.
I think Silva sir has pretty much covered. I will only say, I'll give you an example of a triangle, and the triangle is pretty wide at the base, but as and when you kind of move up the triangle, the width keeps on decreasing, and then there is very little place at the top. So by saying that, what I'm trying to say here is that uh, many people would try, many people would join, but at the end of the day, success will come to them who are persistent in this effort, who are not
Exactly.
yeah who are not hassled by the small issues which are coming here and there, and who are persistent, who are strong, and who are committed. And believe me, like Selva mentioned here, believe me, if you are through this journey, you will be a very very different person altogether. And have that faith in what we are trying to do here, guys. uh, mm, we have an opportunity to change your fortune. And I mean, that's pretty powerful statement I'm making here, but I truly believe
Yes.
in that.
Yes.
Deepak, that's pretty much from my side as well.
So Salva sir and Praveen sir, obviously that's a very succinct way to put the entire program that we have designed. Uh, Specifically you, Praveen sir, because I know the amount of time it has taken you to come up with the agenda. So guys, you have it from the horse's mouth, from Praveen sir, from Salva sir, how dynamic this entire program is, how career changing. I mean, career changing is in a large scheme of things. Career changing is just a very small word, but it'll change your life once you just grab this opportunity and just grab it in a way that you just want to keep pinning us until the point where you get what you want. I mean, I would really appreciate if instead of IBC putting in more, worrying about people joining in, it was other way around. Like I would really appreciate if your friends come in and I see bombardment of messages where, okay, I also want to join. How do I do this? How do I do that? But I mean, I know a lot of students have done that, and a lot of students are also in touch with us on Discord. But at the same time, I would appreciate if you guys connect your friends as well, because I mean, see, once the time passes, you'll miss the opportunity. That train is not. When the time is gone, you can't bring it back. You'll be 1 year behind, and students who put in the effort this year will be somewhere else in the next 6 months. Promise me. I mean, I promise you all, like Praveen sir and Salva sir has said, and obviously Abhishek sir has also said that in next 6 months, if you put in the right amount of effort with Praveen sir and Salva sir, trust me, you will be at another level altogether, and you'll have a different view of the entire blockchain and Web3 space. I mean, you will be developing stuff. Forget about just having a knowledge of this entire space.
Because I have seen in the previous 2 years of conducting training programs, I've seen people jump from zero to almost $100,000 on per annum. That is the kind of thing that we are talking about, not small money. Okay, a bright future waits. Okay, ahead, waits ahead for you. Right. So just keep the passion going. That's all I would like to say.
All right. So Dhruv, any final comments, brother?
No, I think we're all good. So unless there's any questions, I think we'll conclude today's session.
Yeah. Okay. So there are some thank you messages for Praveen sir and Salva sir. Thank you all. I am sure. I mean, I know they appreciate the fact that you guys are. Yeah, I'm quite sure that they appreciate the fact that you all are here, and I know you guys also appreciate the fact that they have taken out the time and they're with you doing this conversation and encouraging you to participate and put in all the work and the energy that you all have. So obviously this is just a start. I don't need to repeat it again. It's just the beginning. I mean, the effort is. I mean, we are just at the lower phase of the triangle, like Praveen sir has suggested. And next 6 months is just we have to climb up. So make sure you continue putting the effort, and we'll catch you all tomorrow again for a very insightful session on how you can leverage the tracks and how you can help yourself win some quite interesting incentives by doing some small things and building some small stuff. I mean, simple stuff, and that's going to be a very encouraging thing for you all. So make sure you join in. Make sure you get your friends also to join in, and it's going to be an insightful session. And we'll be in touch about module 2, and we'll share the information with you on how about the dates and the schedule. Okay, Praveen sir, thank you so much. Salva sir, it was a real pleasure to have you speak with us. Dhruv, thanks a lot.
And obviously
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Salva sir. Thank you, Deepak. Thanks all for joining.
Yeah.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you all for
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.